The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Let's go! What's that? Game time! Game time! It's gonna be a football game tonight now. No doubt. It's gonna be a football game here. Okay. I done been here before. All right, let's go, baby.
9. Rushing 4, ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, and it's still on the ground. Picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line. Vaughn Miller did it again.
Alabama back on top of the college football world. Ladies and gentlemen, football to the max.
Your host, Sean Garmer, Gary Vaughn, and Randy Isbell.
Hello and welcome to another Football to the Max NFL edition here as we look back at NFL Week 9 and discuss the ever controversial Monday Night Football game here between the Buffalo Bills and Seattle Seahawks. And then we kind of get into more talk about said officials, and then we'll also kind of preview getting into Week 10 with the Ravens and Browns matchup on Thursday Night Football. So I'm your host, Sean Garmer. With me here, of course, Gary Vaughn and Randy Isbell. Guys, this Monday Night Football game was going okay until at the end of the first half. We have a situation where Richard Sherman is offside. He barrels into the kicker, does hit the ball. He apparently doesn't hear the whistle and just keeps going because he doesn't want to have a free play. And then there's some mix-up in the rules where because they didn't call roughing the kicker, which there was like there was Jerry Austin, the former head of the officials, said it should have been roughing the kicker. The league during halftime said it should have been roughing the kicker. The officials don't declare roughing the kicker, so they have to take Dan Carpenter out of the game. They have to spike the ball with the second left. Dan Carpenter has to come back in the game. He makes the field goal, but a delay of game penalty pushes the ball, pushes it back to 54 yards, and he misses it. And so they don't get the field goal to end the half after all that crap. There was a point in the fourth quarter where the Bills were behind only by 3. But they were forced to have to basically get all the way down the field, and they couldn't convert on the fourth down, and Seattle winds up winning the game by 6. How big was that call at the end of the half? And it's just ridiculous, right, that you can't get this call right?
All right, listen, it's going to be a little ranty here because I am beyond annoyed. Obviously, I live in the Pacific Northwest, so I am surrounded by moronic Seahawk fans that any call against them is the worst thing ever, and whenever they get a call, oh no, what are you talking about? A few things I want to correct from what you said, Sean. The NFL has said it was supposed to be an unnecessary roughness, not a roughing the kicker,
it's
because
still 15-yard penalty.
I agree, but that's what it should have been, because with the penalty the whistle blown and him hitting him late, it should have been unnecessary roughness, which also would mean he would not have to leave the field due to injury. He would be able to go out there. We wouldn't have had to have all of the spiked ball and all that stuff. The delay of game was not Buffalo's fault. The referee stood over the ball till there were 5 seconds left on that play clock. They didn't blow the whistle for a delay of game until at least 7 or 8 seconds after the clock hit 0. They waited for him. The clock hit 0 as the kicker is taking his first step back. They let him step back, set up, and just about take his first step forward before they realized it had hit zero. And I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be reset at that point because what are they going to do? Just pull the ball away from the referee and hike the ball at that point? The referees completely butchered the inning of the first half. Now, does Buffalo win this game because of it? Who knows? The whole second half plays completely different because of it. We can't sit there and go, oh, they were down 3 at one point. They should have been tied. Would have been completely different. My biggest issue is anyone that will defend Richard Sherman in this instance. Now, you say he touches the ball. I went back and watched this play a bunch, and I haven't been able to watch all of SportsCenter and stuff, and I'm sure they have even more angles that I haven't seen yet. I don't think he ever touches the ball. Even if he does, that wasn't his intended target. He ran past the ball into the kicker and reached down with his left hand as he was passing to make it look like he was going for. To me, his intention was to take out the kicker and hope that he was kicking the ball into him so, it would be fair game. If you go back and watch, the kicker gets hit so hard, the ball still goes 40 yards or so. If Richard Sherman would have touched it, that ball doesn't go anywhere. So for him to sit there and go, I was going out, I get him saying that even though I was offsides, I'm still going to try to block the kick because I'm not giving him a free play because the kick would have still counted if there was no whistle. I get that. But Richard Sherman, you were not going after the ball. It was a dirty play. You should have been penalized, and hell, you probably should have been kicked out of the game.
Yeah, this is a big mess. And I look at it as, once again, the NFL having to figure things out, having to get the referees on the same page. And, yeah, sure, he may not have missed, he may have missed a kick because of this, and he may have, did whatever. But the main point of this is those 3 points would have definitely helped the Buffalo Bills. We saw how it really would have helped them at the end of the game. They wouldn't have had to try to get 6 points. All they would have had to get is 3 more, and that really matters at the end of the day. And, I get the controversy. I get everything that surrounds it, but it happened. It's the way things worked out. So now we're going to have to get over it. But hopefully we get the referees learning from their mistakes. Hopefully the rest of these teams run the league, see how things will work, and know what not to do, but that's the way it is, and it's kind of a bummer that's the way it had to be over controversy.
Yeah, it's just, and this is not the only time we're talking about if we've been talking about officials way too much this season. It's just like, why? What is it with it? We have instant replay, we have all this stuff, and we're still going around making mistakes constantly in these games, and dumb mistakes, and mistakes that takes time for them to figure out. And, it's just, man, is it really all down to they need full-time jobs that they just don't?
Yeah.
Is it about that they don't have the full-time jobs?
That would help. I mean, if they had an off-season like the players did, and continually got better and continually worked on things, and it was a full-time job, then absolutely this would get better. And the thing that just drives me the most crazy about this was a very entertaining game. I am not a Seahawks fan by any mean. Their fans just drive me completely insane, and the Bills are a division rival, and I was enthralled by this game. I thought both teams played extremely well. Seattle hit the big home run plays. Buffalo did exactly what they needed to do. They held the ball for 40 minutes in this game. They kept Russell Wilson off the field. They go for over 400 yards against a tough Seattle defense, and they kept themselves in it. They had the ball inside, the 10-yard line with a minute to go. They couldn't get the job done, and that's fine. Whether you want to blame the kick or not, it was just an embarrassing 5 minutes for the NFL, and just frustrating to watch. But listen, both teams played well. Seattle won the game. They deserve to win. Jimmy Graham is God, and I absolutely love that man. I needed. Nobody cares about fantasy results or whatever. It's the worst thing possible, especially not on a fantasy podcast. But I'm too excited, and I want to say something good about this game. I needed 99 yards and 2 touchdowns from Jimmy Graham. He got me 103 on those 2 touchdowns, and he only needed one hand on both of those to make the catch. Just absolutely outstanding performance by him. Russell Wilson is starting to look healthy again. He's running a little bit. Seattle's a scary team. Take the positives out of this game. Both teams looked great. Just that 5 minutes was so infuriating to watch.
Oh, and it's also infuriating if you're a Bills fan too that you can't convert there at the end when you need to score to win the game. And yeah, I mean, after Robert Woods makes a great play to get the first down, and LaShawn McCoy gets him really close, and just you get 4 plays and nothing. And,
all the credit goes to the Seattle defense. They were aggressive all night. And really here at the end, they really tightened things up. And it was apparent that unless they could find a way, and that's Buffalo, unless they could find a way to sneak some passes in, some tie windows, or maybe find some path where McCoy or even Tyrod Taylor could sneak through, that was the only way they were going to get the points. And really, that's kind of the way it worked out. So at the end of the day, you give credit where it's due, and then you have to move on. And I think with Seattle, their defense definitely did everything they needed to. The offense did what it had to keep itself around in this game. And the Buffalo Bills going to go home with a lot to work on.
Certainly. So we move on to talk about the games from Sunday here. The Baltimore Ravens get a big win against the rival Pittsburgh Steelers. I think it's now 4-0 that John Harbaugh is against Mike Tomlin in this rivalry. Ben Roethlisberger didn't look very good coming back early from injury. Le'Veon Bell gets absolutely stuffed. 32 yards for Le'Veon Bell. Mike Wallace had himself a heck of a day. Was it like a 95-yard touchdown or something that he had?
Yes.
Absolutely insane. And yeah, I mean, they didn't look good the whole way. Whatever. This is a rivalry that is what it is, but the Ravens win.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I still think the Steelers are the better team here. Baltimore gets them at the perfect time as Roethlisberger has to get himself back into a rhythm. An ugly defensive, just divisional rivalry game that you expect from these two. It played out basically the way I thought. I thought Pittsburgh might be able to win this game, come up short as they put themselves in too much of a hole. They were able to score 14 points in the fourth quarter until... do you call that an onside kick?
Oh, the Rabana that Boswell missed? Yeah.
The kick that needed to go 10 yards and went 10 inches? Yeah, that happened.
Now, he did do it in college correctly, so it's not like he's never done it before.
Listen, on the Fantasy Football Podcast, my buddy Mike Mitchell, who is a Steelers fan, had the best line. He said that, the kicker learned that from clown college. So I forget what college he went to, but apparently that's a clown college. It's a clown college now. So
well, we know Mike just hates kickers. So.
Oh man. Oh, you gotta love it. This is a sad game for Big Ben because he wanted to come out strong, but this is just ritualistic. Bad games for him, coming off injuries. And of course, we'll have to see, how Big Ben goes next week. But what matters here is they just couldn't get anything under control. Really, they left it wide open for the Ravens to win this game, so that's what happened.
Yeah, they certainly did. And the Ravens did just that, taking advantage of opportunities. The Jacksonville Jaguars get their best performance out of Blake Bortles the whole year against Kansas City Chiefs. Chris Ivory goes over 100 yards for the first time all season. But Kansas City still wins, even though they did not look very good at times. Nick Foles playing quarterback. They have to score, was it 9 points in the second half to be able to edge out the Jaguars by 5. Kansas City just kind of getting what they just getting it done. 4-0 at home now.
That's just the best I've seen the Jaguars in general play. The defense played well. The running game got going. Chris Ivory got robbed of a touchdown in this game, reaching for a pylon, hitting the pylon, but the referee saying he fumbled it into it. Another wonderful referee decision there. But Kansas City's just too tough at home. Yes, it was ugly, as you said. The running game was non-existent. They need Spencer Ware back quickly. Charcandrick West was just not the answer. Funny moment in this game, obviously, when Travis Kelce gets ejected and decides to do the John Cena to the referee, plus a few other colorful words that, the referee did not like very much. Referee threw the flag, so Travis Kelce decided to throw his towel, which made the referee throw his hat and kick Travis Kelce out of the game. But other than that, this was just an ugly slugfest, and Kansas City continues to be one of the dominant teams in the AFC.
Travis Kelce, I can't see you, and you look stupid.
Hey, pretty good arm with that towel. I mean, he got a lot more distance than I might. Throwing a towel, I don't know. But saying all that, yes, I mean, Kansas City played well with Alex Smith. Nick Foles doing his job, being a good, reliable backup. May not be perfect, but does the job. And, I just kind of came into this thinking to myself, okay, could there be a letdown here for Kansas City? But I just couldn't buy into it that there would be. So it makes sense for what had happened here. And I just want to say about Jacksonville really quickly. A lot of junk time things have happened this year, but Chris Ivory is a guy that, surprisingly, they're starting to use a little bit more. Not as much as I think they wanted to, but he definitely is a goal line back for sure.
No, I mean, you have to have some kind of running game. You just have to. Whether it's Ivory, whether it's Yeldon. Maybe you get Ivory going here and you get better offensive performance out of the Jaguars, because just putting it all on Bortles was too much for the guy. I'm sorry we have to do this, Randy, but your New York Jets lose to the Miami Dolphins, who have now won 3 in a row. Jay Ajayi goes over 100 yards again, 111 in fact, on 24 carries. The Jets were up in this game at one point. I don't get this. I know Mo Wilkerson and Sheldon Richardson were out for the first quarter for disciplinary reasons. Then Sheldon Richardson decides that he's going to just shove the guy down while he's already down and cause himself a personal foul. I mean, that was just stupid. But, I don't think that was the only stupid thing that happened with the Jets in this game.
No. Listen, and I hate to correct you again, but the Miami Dolphins have not won 3 in a row. They won 2 in a row, and then were gifted one.
Oh.
Period.
Okay.
The Miami Dolphins did not win this game. The New York Jets completely lost it. It was, I have gotten to the point as a Jets fan that I know that I'm going to be disappointed. It's just a way of life as a Jets fan. I had some hope going into the season. That hope has been completely destroyed, even before this week. But I don't know if I have ever watched a game where I was so frustrated the entire way through. We had a wonderful game that we will talk about later with Green Bay and Indianapolis. I can't tell you what happened the first half because I stopped watching football for an hour just to get away from it. It was so embarrassing to watch. And it was everything from defense to Ryan Fitzpatrick cannot hit an open receiver. I still think that he has put too much pressure on himself with this franchise tag and contract year, and he's forcing the ball. Then he has a knee injury, and they're bringing Bryce Petty. Don't let him really do anything, a couple dump-off passes. And then they bring him back, Fitzpatrick back in, who now cannot step forward and now is overthrowing everybody by 10 yards, which was just awful to watch. The Jets dominate this game between the 20s, but once they get past the 20, They made the red zone 4 times early on in this game, came away with 9 points. You cannot do that in the NFL and win. The only time they scored was when Ryan Fitzpatrick threw an awful interception, and the Miami punter decided to be nice and muff the punt, giving the Jets basically the ball right where they had it. He makes one good throw and gets a touchdown. And guess what? The Jets had the lead late. And then they kick it off and they stop him. Great. Oh, no. Offside on the kicking team. So now everyone that just ran 70 yards down the field has to go all the way back and do it again. And this time they allow him to score a touchdown. And that is your season in a nutshell as a Jets fan. It's awful. Fitzpatrick is now banged up on top of being terrible. It is time to move on. I was thinking maybe after the bye week. I knew they had to win out up until the bye week to have a chance. They did not. It is time to see what the future holds. We have some wonderful receivers in Jalen Marshall and Robbie Anderson. Very young guys there. The defense is stacked. The defensive line you're going to have for years. It's time to move on. Ryan Fitzpatrick, I was really happy that you came back because of what you did last season, but you're dreadful. He is so lucky that the great mighty poo that is Brock Osweiler is in the league, or Ryan Fitzpatrick would be the worst starting quarterback in the NFL right now.
Oh, boy.
Oh, Osweiler didn't even play this week, and he's still got to take a shot at Brock Osweiler.
I love it.
Oh my
I
God.
love it. It's like me and the Texas A&M quarterbacks like Tannehill.
Well, Tannehill's winning, so he's...
Yeah, I haven't said anything about him, so I guess I'm...
Well,
keeping
but,
quiet,
Adam Gase figured out that maybe we need to have Ryan Tannehill throw less,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how we'll win. So,
Yeah, there you go. A changing philosophy of work.
it tells you everything you need to know, Gary, when you have all of your timeouts and, you got, 30 seconds left in the second quarter, and they won't throw the ball to try to actually see if they can get somewhere. Because he's not confident, Ryan Tannehill. That's sad.
Very sad to limit your team like that. I agree. Very sad. And, this Jets team, it's interesting because I really had high expectations for them coming into this year and really didn't think that, Ryan Fitzpatrick would be one of the biggest problems. And it's been a shock that he's given him so many issues. And, at the bottom of the barrel is not too far away for the New York Jets at this time. It's just, I can't believe I'm saying that.
It's sad.
The only thing that's more sad is the quarterback matchup that you're going to have next week when the Jets and the Rams face.
Oh, boy.
Because the Rams still won't go to Goff. So you're going to have Fitzpatrick and... she's stupid. I can't even talk anymore. Somebody go to a different game. Cause
Jeff Fisher did say they are looking at things now. So...
Yeah. So
when you say you are now looking at golf or you're considering, it means you're actually thinking about it. But that being said, they played an ugly game with the Panthers. The Panthers wind up winning by 3 points over the Rams. The Rams actually did not score until the fourth quarter. The Panthers also went scoreless for 2 quarters as well. This, like I said, this was not a pretty game at all. Todd Gurley can't even get 50 yards. Case Keenum somehow almost gets 300 yards. Cam Newton was, at least passing the ball. It was not his day.
Yeah, at least his talk with Roger Goodell totally stopped. Him getting hit and not penalized.
He got whacked with a forearm with a chest or somewhere close to that.
There was another helmet that wasn't called, and it's Thanks, refs. You guys are wonderful.
Thank you, Roger Goodell, for listening to one of your stars of your league. But
well, to be fair, Jeff Fisher did call Goodell after that meeting and said, "Hey, you're not going to start calling penalties on us just because we're playing them next, right? And so they agree that they weren't going to do that, so they let them play a little
Well,
bit here.
On the other side of things, Russell Wilson did say that he doesn't play football to he knows he's going to get hit and he's fine with it. He doesn't play football to have this be ballet. So I don't know. I'm taking a shot at Cam Newton, maybe being a baby.
Hey, could be. I mean, I think there are some people out there who kind of don't agree with Cam, and I'm not saying I don't agree with him completely, but I could see where some people are coming through and saying, "Look, this is no different than any other quarterback in the league. You just are taking it into your own hands to say it's all about you."
What do you think, Randy?
Listen, yes, Cam Newton has a me approach to things, and that's how it sounds to a lot of people, and he needs a better approach about it. But honestly, the way I see Cam Newton's complaints is, listen, this is a penalty to the other 31 quarterbacks in the league. Why isn't it for me? I think that's his biggest issue. It's not that, I got hit, they should be flagged for touching me. It's, I'm getting drilled, and I'm then going home and watching SportsCenter and watching this other quarterback get hit nowhere near as hard as I just got hit and getting 15 yards for it.
He's right about that, but what other quarterback in the league just decides to act like a running back half the time?
I mean, there's a few, but both of the big hits that he got in this game on Sunday were both in the pocket.
You're right. I mean, it's just, I don't know. Maybe that talk did the opposite. But they got mad and just said, we're not calling it. But the Panthers do win, so that's a plus. Now both teams are 3-5. That's a mark. I don't think anybody thought the Panthers were going to get 3-5. They should be better at this point than 3-5. But that being said, we move along to the New York Giants, who finally get the monkey out their back of beating the Eagles, who's been owning them lately. The Eagles do almost make a comeback, but just fall short because Carson Wentz again gets into some interception trouble, and that kind of does him in this game. Odell Beckham getting 2 touchdowns. Eli Manning probably has one of his better games of the entire season, and the Giants win a divisional game at home.
Yeah, a much-needed win for that Giants team as well because of the fact that they want to stay up in that division. The NFC East is so competitive right now, which is kind of odd. If going into this year, we all kind of said that may be one of the weakest divisions in football. Now it's totally flip-flopping, and who knows what's going to happen from here. But I think right now they're on the right path. Getting Odell Beckham Jr. involved in the passing game. Manning looked pretty good. At the same time, Manning almost lost him that game, throwing a pick late in the game and giving, Philadelphia a chance to get on the field and to score. So there was a little bit of risk in this game overall, but I think for the most part, you had a Giants team who used their defense to their best ability, rushing Carson Wentz and really getting in his face, causing him to make mistakes. And then, of course, letting your offense go when it needed to go.
This was the passing attack that I was expecting from the Giants. They have no running game, but it was finally nice to see Eli Manning spread the ball around, not force-feed it to Odell Beckham. He went around 8 different receivers, caught a ball. Nobody caught more than 4 receptions. It was a nice spread-out offense. That stalled a little bit late, and they made a couple mistakes, but I credit that to a nice, tough NFC East rivalry battle. Both teams played tough. I think both teams still have a shot at the playoffs. It's going to be tough to catch your guys' Dallas Cowboys, who are just red hot right now. But all 4 teams really in the NFC East have a decent chance to make the playoffs. Unfortunately, all 4 can't make it.
Yeah, in saying that, I mean, the Eagles look decent in this game. Yes, Carson Wentz did have some problems, which is expected. He's a rookie quarterback, and he got a lot of pressure in his face. Darren Sproles did what he could, but at the end of the day, the Eagles were always involved. They were still in this game till the very end. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, I look at them and say, well, they're still a really good team. Yes, they've lost 2 weeks in a row, but man, they're still a team I do not want to, underestimate by any means.
Certainly not. Yeah, you don't want to do that. But I mean, they did kind of have a tough road here with 2 back-to-back divisional road games for the Eagles there in between the. So that was always going to be a tough ask for them to win both of them. We move along here as the Detroit Lions become the 3rd team in a row to beat the Minnesota Vikings. This time, the Vikings don't have an excuse. They were at home, and they still lose this. Theo Riddick and Eric Ebron come back for the Lions. This helps as basically, again, at the end of the game, the Lions are able to make a drive. They force overtime, and then they get the touchdown in overtime. The Vikings defense did everything they possibly could to keep the Lions in this game, honestly. They did everything. And just, that offensive line is so bad. They have no running game, and it's Sam Bradford doing everything. And he didn't have a bad stat line. It's just, you can't do that. You cannot do that to the guy. Just...
All right, raise your hands if in the preseason you said the Detroit Lions were going to be the power of the NFC North come Week 9. Anybody?
I don't see any hands up over here.
No. But that's what it is to me. I think they are the most complete team in that division right now. As you said, the offensive line for Minnesota is terrible. Again, I hate to rag on Sam Bradford because he is playing well, but that trade was atrocious, and they shouldn't have spent that much on somebody that's you're not going to give any time out there. I mean, it could be any quarterback back there, unless, say, maybe a Russell Wilson or a Tyrod Taylor that basically is hiking the ball and running, and it's going to be rough sledding for them. You're not putting him in a situation to win. It doesn't help the fact that, Adrian Peterson got hurt and the running game is now in shambles. When Ronnie Hillman is your leading running back for 30 yards, you have issues. I mean, that's just all there is to it. But Detroit, you can't really sit there and look at them and go, they have a deficiency somewhere. Theo Riddick is becoming a pretty good every down back. Dwayne Washington is right there behind him. Matthew Stafford is having a MVP candidate season right now. The defense is great. I think they're the class of the NFC North right now.
Yeah. And I agree that, looking at Detroit, they bring a lot to the table on offense, and, their defense has stepped up as well. So, I mean, you've got to be, pretty correct on that, Randy, because Green Bay just not doing it right now. They just don't have the mojo. And of course, Minnesota has found themselves kind of lost and unable to answer the questions they thought they had solved. So there you go with them. And Chicago, of course, is right now Chicago, kind of a bottom feeder. So Detroit definitely a big favorite, and a game where they proved that they can play tied games. They had a kick a field goal to go to overtime, and Golden Tate's big play was really neat to see, but at the end of the day, it just goes to show, Matthew Stafford and this offense is ready to help pick up the slack when needed.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the Vikings technically still have the best record, but they keep doing this. It's going to be dwindling every week. Speaking of the rest of that NFC North, the Packers were at home at Lambeau, and they lose to the Indianapolis Colts. Aaron Rodgers still a little bit under 300 yards. He gets 3 touchdowns. One of them, Jordy Nelson, who almost gets 100 yards receiving. Frank Gore gets 2 touchdowns on this day. And, yeah, I mean, the Colts kind of just went up big they were up 24-10. Packers are kind of held to only 3 points in the third quarter. They try to make a comeback in the fourth, but it's not enough. And the Colts win a game that I don't think a lot of people were just expecting them to win.
No, not at all. And listen, they went out and returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown and never looked back. the defense for Green Bay really lost them this game in the first half. They really struggled to stop the Colts offense. Andrew Luck doesn't have the best game stat-wise. He threw 2 early interceptions on a few times that Green Bay got going. It was Clinton Dix who went ballistic as far as that. But everyone else on that defense struggled. Frank Gore was able to pound the rock in there. And Green Bay they need a running back. Eddie Lacy going down, James Starks going down, has really just put their offense in flux. It continues to be let Aaron Rodgers sit in the pocket, kind of create a bubble around him, and just cloud the receivers until he finally has to do something with it, whether it's get sacked or try to run out of it or try to force a throw, and it's just not working. James Stark did practice limited the last couple days this last week. We'll see if he gets things going and plays next week, but they really need a more balanced offense.
Yeah, they definitely do, and that's the thing here. When you're looking at a team like Green Bay where you just assume already that they're going to have a great offense, they're going to be ready to go, and without that running game, it takes a weapon away. Then, of course, when you have receivers dropping balls like Green Bay's had, that's another knock on your offense. So you go from having one of the most prolific offenses in football to very average to below average in an instant. So Aaron Rodgers isn't used to this. Aaron Rodgers isn't used to winning. Isn't used to losing at home, especially, but nonetheless not losing at all. So this is hard for him. It's hard for him to swallow and take any of this. So it's frustrating for Green Bay right now, and I could definitely see them maybe even getting more frustrated as time goes on if they continue to lose, even if it's just like this in this kind of circumstances. Indianapolis got a victory here. I wasn't sold that they were going to do it, but they did, and hopefully they can take this and build on it because they need to. They've had their own losses this year that kind of showcase that they're not the Colts of old.
Well, one team is certainly not the same team that they were earlier in the season. The San Diego Chargers get another big win against the Tennessee Titans, 43-35. They are just putting up those points. Marcus Mariota, 313 yards and 3 touchdowns. Melvin Gordon, 32 carries for almost 200 yards and gets a touchdown. This was the Melvin Gordon show for the Chargers. They win again, 4-5, and they're making noise. They're becoming players in that division now after what happened in the Sunday night game too.
Yeah, unfortunately, they play in such a brutal division in the AFC West. And before I get into that, I do want to say real quick, I have SportsCenter on in the background, and they finally did show a angle where Richard Sherman touches the football, but the holder's still holding on to it as he is then plowing into the kicker. I still think he's going for the kicker first and just happened to touch the ball on the way through of killing said kicker. But I did see an angle finally where, yes, Richard Sherman does touch the ball. Anyways, I do have to say, listen, San Diego has continually impressed me. There are so many games where they should have won. Mike said it in the fantasy podcast. They could be 8-1 right now if they could have finished games early and not found weird ways to lose. They are the opposite of the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions have been trailing in every fourth quarter this season, yet have a winning record. It seems like San Diego has been winning in the fourth quarter every game, and early on they found ways to lose, and now they're not. They're holding on, and a lot of it's Melvin Gordon, who has just blown up this season. I remember when we talked in the preseason, would he have over under 2 touchdowns? And we were all saying, it's over but close. He has 9 already. Just an absolutely astonishing year. He's already over 1,000 yards total offense. It's a good story, and we'll see what they can do. But when you're in a division with the Chiefs, Raiders, and Broncos, it's tough not to be the fourth team in that list.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you think after you watch this game that this team is one of the best teams in AFC, and you look at their record and you're like, what? Wait a minute, I just saw this, I'm seeing this. And that's really honestly the bottom line on it, is the fact that they have played Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde so much this year, losing games that are close and just, not be able to finish out when they need to finish out. So that has left them in this disposition. But I will say this, I mean, you got to be impressed with everything Melvin Gordon's doing. Phillip Rivers continues to be very successful. And, they're finding ways to win. Their defense is stepping up. That's one thing I will say this year. The San Diego defense is actually stepping up and trying to make things work, whereas in years past, that was not the case. And they've always depended on their offense more than anything else. So, I don't know when they'll be consistent, but if they ever figure that out, you're right, Randy, they could be highly successful.
Well, speaking of that other AFC West team, they were both facing each other here. The Oakland Raiders at home defeat the Broncos 30-20 after Latavius Murray getting 114 yards and 3 touchdowns. Several of them close there to the goal line, of course. The Broncos trying to make it a game late there with a Capri Bibbs big return that was like ridiculous. How he kind of just sliced through that Raiders team. But they were unable to do it, and the Raiders hold on and win. And now they take the lead in that division. Wow, who would have thought that? The Raiders are leading the AFC West.
Listen, you'd go find somebody that did not watch this game, hasn't seen a result of it or anything like that, but follows football. And you tell them that one team threw the ball 37 times, only ran it 12 times, while the other team rushed for 218 yards. I guarantee you they get the teams wrong. This game went the exact opposite of the way I thought it was going to. I thought Denver was going to try to run all over Oakland, while Oakland was going to have to try to find a way to throw it on a tough Denver defense, and it was going to be a close game, and I thought Denver was going to come out on top. It was the exact opposite. Oakland had their way offensively. Again, you tell somebody else that Derek Carr played Denver and threw for 0 touchdowns. They're going to think the Broncos won this game. The Raiders have completely impressed me, and this game solidifies them as one of the top contenders to take out New England in the playoffs. They are more of a complete team than I thought. That young defense is improving as the season goes along, and not only do they have a chance to win the division, they have a chance to go to the Super Bowl if they can continue this going.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, they could definitely go to the Super Bowl. And this is a team that seems to have it all. You got an offensive line that is actually playing really, really well right now, and you got a running game that's working where, in most of this league, not all, running games are being as successful. And I'm just, looking at this team and saying, man, at the beginning of the year, I really had a lot of expectations for them. I had to go back and listen to that show and see if I actually did pick them, but they were definitely high on my list of teams that were going to be successful this year. And seeing that come to fruition, it just proves you got a great young quarterback who's finally getting his veteran legs. You finally got some good situations going on in your running game. And then your defense is actually young, but they're stepping up. And that all is working out to the Raiders' favor. And maybe the Broncos may be finding themselves on the outside looking in.
Very true about that. The Broncos could, between Kansas City and the Raiders, they could find themselves in that third spot and not make it to the playoffs, honestly. Even though they're the defending Super Bowl champs, the Raiders played great in this game. Not to take away, anything from what the Broncos tried to do, but just this is crazy insane that the Raiders have come this far, and already this season. I mean, you look at the rest of their schedule and you're going, man, they could win quite a few more games here, and really put this kind of thing away. Speaking of putting things away, the Saints put the 49ers away, 41-23. Now, let's play a game just like Randy said. If I would have told you that a certain running back got over 158 yards and a touchdown, and a certain quarterback got over 398 yards and 2 touchdowns. I bet you get them wrong.
Wait, let me guess. John Kuhn was the running back.
Well, I was thinking maybe Carlos Hyde would actually, do something with the 49ers. But no, Mark Ingram finally shows up and gets 158 yards rushing and a touchdown. Colin Kaepernick, for God's sakes, gets almost 400 yards. That's how bad the Saints defense is. Colin Kaepernick gets 398 yards and 2 touchdowns. Wow.
Hopefully everyone listened to the fantasy podcast on Thursday. I told you, and use that advice in a couple of weeks. Start Colin Kaepernick if you have a quarterback on bye. I thought this was going to be a shootout. I liked Kaepernick in this. Even with junk time, it was disappointing that Carlos Hyde does not play. But Mark Ingram was great. Tim Hightower does fine. This game kind of played out the way I thought it was going to. San Francisco able to put up some points, but never really, threatening the Saints in this game. And, yes, Mark Ingram does better than I thought he was going to, but the Saints weren't.
I really kind of felt like the Saints were going to take control of the game only because San Francisco has just had so much go wrong. And, the way that New Orleans has beaten some actually really good teams this year, that actually, kind of made me lean towards them a little bit. But, at the same point, San Francisco did hold their own some in this game. And at the end of the day, you've got to be impressed by Mark Ingram. You've got to be impressed by guys like Michael Thomas, who consistently are starting to show that they are dependable. So, I don't know if this is a division game that does matter, but on the outside, you really just kind of say, well, these are two teams that are not going to be in the playoffs, we would assume.
Yeah, probably not, as long as Atlanta keeps playing the way they have been. But you never know with Atlanta. You don't know if they're going to have that moment where they implode or whatnot. And let's not forget, Carolina, I think they're going to be a problem. They keep gaining confidence, keep winning. You don't want to play them later in the season. And they could play spoilers to some of these, to an Atlanta or to New Orleans possibly, making a case in that division. And of course, the last game here, the Cowboys going to Cleveland. Somebody kept saying it was a trap game. I don't know about that. They just went in and it's absolutely demolished the Cleveland Browns and that terrible defense. Cameron Irvin going out in the first drive because he's stupid and decides to go and uppercut freaking David Irving. Well, David Irving was having none of that. They both get ejected. And then, Dak Prescott does what he does. Ezekiel Elliott just runs all over the Browns. He didn't get, over 100-something yards or whatever, but he didn't need to. He scored 2 touchdowns, including a beautiful switch my hands while I'm in the air and then hit the pylon. Isn't this the best start in Cowboys history or best, wins in a row or whatever it is? 7 straight. That's,
if they go 8 straight, it'll tie 2014 or 2007, one of the two.
Yeah, I mean, somebody keeps talking about messing with that chemistry. I don't know. I mean, I know you're playing the Steelers and Big Ben's hurt and whatnot, but I think you still got to keep putting Dak through tests here. It's a rough one, I think, if you're the Cowboys and you're going to sit there and take Dak out and put Romo in when they keep playing this way. And even going in and doing a mannequin, I don't know if you saw that mannequin challenge thing, Gary. That was pretty cool.
It was pretty neat. I admit it was pretty cool. So, but yeah, I mean, looking at this team, I mean, you talk about the quarterback situation. That's the biggest thing everybody's talking about, and I understand it. It should be a big deal. We're just going to let it play out. I mean, I don't really know that we're going to get an answer anytime soon. I would assume that Dak Prescott is going to be definitely playing Pittsburgh, only because of the fact that, they said Tony Romo hasn't fully practiced an entire week yet. He's had some good days, but he hasn't had a week. And until he does that, that probably alludes to Dak Prescott getting this nod in Pittsburgh. And every game you play, you ask that question, well, was Dak good enough? Is this the time to play Romo? And he wins. He wins in good fashion, and he shows people that, man, he is, real. So they keep giving him more games, and that brings up the question is, when does this train end? Does the train end for Dak when he loses a game? Or where does that ceiling actually lie? We don't know. I keep thinking about this team in the same direction as well. I keep looking at this team and saying, how real is this team? Well, at the beginning of the year, I said, well, if they can beat this team, they'll do fine. If they can beat Washington, I'll believe. They beat Washington. Well, they've got to beat, Philadelphia for me to believe. They beat Philadelphia. Well, I don't know. Cleveland can probably beat them because that's the way things work. Now they beat. So this is a different team, and I don't know. I'm just looking at this team as they're a hot young team. They're doing something special. How far can they go? I don't know. I would love to sit here and say I would know what's going to happen here in Pittsburgh, but man, Randy, I just don't know. It's almost too hard for me to judge.
Sorry, I fell asleep. I was dreaming of being able to root for a winning football team. I don't know how you guys can handle.
Last year you had to deal
team.
with us playing with a terrible Cowboys team, so I don't want to hear that.
Now listen, Dallas completely did what they needed to do. Completely took out a lesser opponent. Yes, it's terrible that you guys have to deal with. Which good quarterback do we have to start? What are we going to do? Just it's awful. I don't know who can turn around and hand it to Ezekiel Elliott better.
Very true. Very true. A lot of people say they joke, and the joke here in Dallas, and it may be national, but in Dallas, we've got the quarterback controversy solved. Sanchez.
Oh,
Did you guys see him on Sunday? He had a QBR of 99.9.
That QBR is the worst freaking stat there is. That is such a misleading stat. It's terrible. ESPN just shoves that thing down your throat, and it's horrible. It's all based on if you win or lose. It's just ridiculous. Seriously, ESPN, go make up another stat that actually means something. But look, they took care of business. Let's see what happens when they play the Steelers. Going into Heinz Field, where right now the Pittsburgh's actually favored by 2.5. So
yeah, and I just want to ask Randy. We're going to do our predictions next Thursday, but I just want to ask you this right now. Looking at this team, you're the outsider looking in. You have no dog in the fight when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. How do you feel like that they're doing this year? Do you, so far, what you've seen, are they for real? Because as a Cowboys fan, we don't know. At least I don't know. I this is probably a dream. I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to be in, that bar where Norm and the rest of the guys from Cheers are.
Listen, they're absolutely for real. I mean, your one loss was the first game of the year against a division opponent, and it was a really close game. Dak Prescott continues to improve. Ezekiel Elliott is outstanding. You have a ton of weapons in that receiving core. The one thing that I really loved seeing from Prescott in this game on Sunday, yes, it was against the Browns, and they're awful, and their linebacker core is ridiculous. But he spread the ball around. It wasn't like it was last week when Des Bryant returned and they force-fed it to Bryant too much. Bryant only had the one catch in this game on just 4 targets. It was Witten and Beasley who just completely destroyed the middle part of this field, and Prescott knew where the weaknesses were. So that's what I liked. I like seeing the maturity of this quarterback. Now, whether it's him or if they go back to Romo, it might mess around with the chemistry or whatever, but this team is absolutely for real. The defense is good. Your offensive line is still one of the best in the league. You have the best young running back in the league by far. Alfred Morris here, does pretty well in a backup role as well. And there's not that many facets of the Cowboys game where I can point at and go, oh, this is where you can beat them.
I do think next week this is where you're going to miss Barry Church, where you're going to miss Mo Claiborne, because, I mean, let's be honest. The Browns have Corey Coleman like no one.
Mm-hmm.
So, but now...
Hey, Terrell Pryor's sitting over here going, I've been the heart and soul of the Browns. He's been
but
the
I'm
only
just
good
saying,
player on
like,
the Browns.
he didn't do anything in that game. They basically keyed in, and that's the problem. When you don't have anybody, they can key in on Terrell Pryor, and then, and Cody Kessler didn't play a bad game. I know people were complaining about, Josh McCown should have played, and whatever, but I didn't think Cody Kessler was the reason they lost that game. He actually played decent, So, it's just the offense. Let's be honest here, though, too. Your center goes out, that changes your entire offensive line. They had a guard playing center. They had to move the other guard around. They had to move the tackle around. So that hurts too. But, just it's the Browns, and that's what's going to happen. And we got to talk about the Browns again because they're playing the Ravens on Thursday in Baltimore. Now, this is where we've had some weird games with the Browns. Just because Joe Flacco's been so weird this year, he's not been dominant or whatever. They don't really have a running game like the Cowboys do that could just kind of run them over or whatever. I think this is closer to the divisional game. I'll still give the Ravens the edge.
Ravens at home on a short week. They are by far the better team. I don't think it's close. I think the Ravens just dominate this game.
And even if it is close, the Ravens' defense is well manicured as of late, and they have done a great job. And I don't believe they're going to let a kid like Cody Kessler slow him down now. So even if it's a 3-6 game, it's going to be the Ravens.
Yeah, so that'll do it for us talking about Week 10 and going in on that Thursday game. And we'll be back on the Friday morning to discuss that Thursday game and, of course, preview the rest of the week that happens in Week 10 of the NFL. Already getting into past the halfway point and the end. This seems like the season has gone by really fast already. And, man, that Sunday night game is tasty that I'm looking at right now. The Patriots at home against the Seahawks. Oof. Man, that's gonna be an awesome game. Anyway, we'll talk about that more and the rest of the games on the Friday show. Until then, everybody, see you later.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.